guys, JD with ICOtec Game Calls. Today, with this tutorial, let's talk coyote calling. So the first topic is sounds. What sounds do I use? When do I use them? Do I use the same sounds, in the spring as I would in early fall? And honestly, I use the same sounds year round. I know a lot of guys say stay away from aggressive howls in the fall and early winter because you've got so many young coyotes that are dispersing from family units and looking for a place to call home, and that you're going to intimidate those coyotes. But honestly, I've not necessarily seen that. I mean, all coyotes have different personalities, and even them pups can be aggressive. So I still use those aggressive sounds in the fall and early winter, not only with hopes of calling those aggressive pups or the young of the year, not necessarily pups anymore at that time frame, but the adult coyotes that are on that ground that call that place home. They're still going to defend it in the fall and early winter. So I still use those aggressive sounds that time of year. I do fish basically through sounds when I'm out hunting to find what the coyotes are biting on. Some nights, and let me say I do most of my calling at night. I do daytime calling as well, but in Ohio, it's far more productive to call at night with thermal optics. So with that said, I'm fishing through sounds, trying to find what they're biting on. And then once I find something that they're responding to, I'm going to stick with it until it quits working. So it may be a prey distress sound, it may be a single lone howl, or it may be those pup distress and knockdown, drag out coyote fights that's working. But I got to find that combination and stick with it until it quits working. How I typically will start my night of hunting is, I'll start a stand with a lone howl, follow it up with a different coyote lone howl, and then potentially go into a prey distress for 3 or 4 minutes, and then go back to some howling, and then maybe another prey distress, and then before I'm all said and done, I've ran a pup distress and a coyote fight. If that's not working after a couple stands, then I'll give up on the howls. I'll go straight to distress sounds to start my stands out and let them run 4 or 5 minutes at a time. If nothing's biting doing that, then I'm going to start completely doing away with the prey distress sounds and go to vocals. So basically like fishing, trying to find what they're biting on. So I'm going through different recipes as I'm hunting through the night with hopes, finding that recipe that'll work. And that recipe might be those lone howls of prey distress and more lone howls, and we're getting coyotes to bite. Or it might be completely leaving the vocals out of the equation and we're just killing coyotes on simple prey distress sounds. Or it may be don't run a prey distress sound, stick strictly to vocals. So you just never know what it is until you're out there and you're actually hunting. Time of year for certain sounds, as I stated, I run the same sounds year round, whether they're distress sounds or coyote vocals. The only time I do anything pertaining to the time of year differently is with a fawn distress, and that's in this late spring. In middle of May through June, I'll start targeting and using fawn distress because that's pretty much their diet that time of year. I mean, they're hunting the whitetail fawns hard. So that's the only kind of restrictive time frame type of sound I'll use. One nice thing about the GCX remote control, it's got 2 favorites banks. You got 1 and 2. Each one holds 10 sounds. So in my favorites 1, I'm going to throw all my coyote vocals in there, and my 2, I'm going to put my prey distress sounds in. And I'll set those up in accordance to how I'm going to run my stand. So, it's pretty convenient. I'll throw 3 to 4 single lone howls at the beginning of my favorites bank. And then I'm going to throw in a pair howl. And then sometimes I'll have a group howl in there, depending on, if they're vocal that night. If I'm running through those top 3, 4, 5 sounds and they're not vocal, then I'll throw a group howl at them and see if I can get them to respond. And if they don't, if that group howl's not working, I might pull it back out of there for the night, because they're just one of them nights that they're not vocal, and we see that quite often. Some nights they won't shut up, some nights you can't make them talk. And then at the bottom of my favorites one list, that's where I'm going to have pup distress and coyote fights. And that's how I'm going to run my stands. I'm going to run them, from top to bottom as I have them in my favorites banks. And then my prey distress side, I'm going to run some rabbit, I'm going to run some bird, rodent, and then fawn, or like a goat or something along those lines, chicken. And just basically try and find a combination that they're biting on. Once I find it and it's working, I stick with it. I don't change it until it quits working. And it's amazing how, from experience, seeing, we'll go out, we'll start hunting, we'll start fishing through all those sounds, and we can't kill anything other than on a certain rabbit distress. And we might kill 2 or 3 coyotes, and then it just absolutely quits working, middle of the night. And then you start running vocals and start calling coyotes back in and killing coyotes again. So it can change right in the middle of the night. They're fascinating animals, and putting your thumb on them is constant work. I mean, you're constantly working at this to keep a consistent, number of coyotes that you're killing. On the volume, when it comes to my howls, I run my howls not full volume. Like on my ICOtec GCX remote control, I've got increments of 1 to 10 on the volume scale. I'll run volume 7, maybe 8 on coyote vocals. My prey distress sounds, I'm down to a 4, possibly a 6, depending on the wind speeds. But my vocals are always played higher than my prey distress sounds. When it comes to whether or not I elevate my call, I most definitely do. Yes, ICOtec has the extended legs on the front to pitch that sound up, but a lot of the places I'm calling, I still need to get that caller up off the ground, above the vegetation, and you'd be surprised, how much the ground and that vegetation will eat up your sound and your volume. So I definitely like to run it on a tripod, so I'm casting that sound far and wide. That pretty much covers, sounds I use, the time of year I'm using them, how I use them, volumes I'm using them at, and getting that collar up off the ground. Most definitely helps. So hopefully this information helped you, and thanks for watching.